This is the China Hollywood Greenlight podcast, episode number 45.
And rolling sound. Quiet.
Here we go. Ready.
Speeding. 120, take 7.
And action.
This is Caryn McCann, the host of the China Hollywood Greenlight podcast, a podcast about creating and distributing content for both Hollywood and China. If you like the show, please go to your favorite podcast directory, subscribe and leave a rating so other people can find this podcast. The more we work together, the more opportunities will be out there for everyone. Any links mentioned in the podcast can be found in the show notes at the China list, where Hollywood and China meet. Just go to https://chnlist.com/podcast-blog and look for this episode, which is number 45. Before I introduce today's guest, I'd like to start out with a motivational quote to encourage our listeners to continue their path to achieving their own green light. And today's quote is from management consultant and author Peter Drucker. And he said, "Do first things first and second things not at all." A quick update on what I'm working on. I have big news. The China List, our membership website to connect writers and producers in Hollywood and China, is expanding. We will have a new look and a new website called the Asia List. Besides China and Hollywood, writers and producers from hot markets like South Korea, Japan, Thailand, the Philippines, Indonesia, Taiwan, India, etc. will be able to connect. Stay tuned for our grand opening announcement. And now, here is the main segment. Today's guest is Nikk Mitchell, a Kenyan-born Canadian, is a developer, filmmaker, patron of the arts, and entrepreneur who has lived in China for over 15 years. Over the last 10 years, he has focused his career in the virtual reality, VR industry. Nikk built a name for himself locally through the launch of the first VR community website in China, Oculus-China.com, purchased by Facebook in 2014. Now he spends his days as CEO of FXG, developing the world's best VR camera technology and helping VR brands from around the world find success in China. Well, Nikk, thank you for coming on the show today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Caryn.
Now, I told the audience a little bit about you, but why don't you take a minute and tell us about yourself personally and your business?
Yeah, so as Caryn mentioned, have been kind of around the world before I came to China, but now it's currently where I'm making my move, and I've been deep in VR for almost 10 years now. Recently, what we've been working on is VR cameras. So we developed a full frame sensor 12K 180 VR camera for doing super high quality VR content, and we also develop content ourselves. So in China, we work with lately a lot of reality TV, kind of like So You Think You Can Dance of China, a basketball reality TV show, a boxing show, a bunch of really big brands here. So those ones we work with Tencent. Now we're working with Douyin, which is the Chinese version of TikTok. Abroad, we worked with GE using our cameras for their internal education for their healthcare department. And lately, live streaming has been another really big thing we've been doing, specifically working with ByteDance and some other really big brands, but also as the technology develops worldwide, working at providing those solutions from our camera to our software to help people do 8K stereoscopic live streaming. And then the last thing, me being a Canadian in China and in the industry, I've always had people kind of coming up to me and asking for help and support. And so that's kind of naturally evolved into another department in the company where we help with localization and sales and piracy protection and all kinds of things that international brands, specifically international VR brands, might not have the know-how or the resources to handle.
So is that like a consulting division?
Yeah, I'd say it takes a lot of different kind of forms. So consulting is a big part of it, but it also comes for sometimes it goes to even to publishing
Okay.
and localization and legal protection.
Wow.
And it can be broad or small depending on what foreign devs need.
Okay. Well, before I even start with my questions, can you tell the audience who might not know what virtual reality is? Is it sort of like you open the video and you feel like you're there?
Yeah. So for our virtual reality videos, the cameras, we have two cameras. One is 180 degrees, so which is kind of half of the space, all the space in front of you, and then the other is 360 degrees, which is like completely all around you. So when you film with a camera like that, and then you view it with a virtual reality headset on, it's like you're in the video. So instead of kind of having one viewpoint that's set, it's like you've actually captured the entire scene, and then the viewer looks around on their own and they kind of choose what to look at.
Wow. Well, let's start with the very, very basics. Why did you want to enter the China market?
I think for me being, well, I guess I'm not super young anymore, but originally when I came here, I was very young and
you are young.
Ambitious.
Don't listen.
I am young.
He's very young.
I'm still very young. I'm not 40 yet, which I definitely consider to be very young still. But
yes,
I came here when I was 18, and
really?
I came, yeah. So then I just kind of was adventurous, and I wanted to kind of see the world and experience new things. And there was so much that I wanted to do and be, and I happened to end up in China randomly from a job I found off Craigslist.
Good for you.
The sketchiest. Good for me. Oh, my poor mother. But that's definitely the sketchiest way to leave a country. But yeah, so I arrived here a long time ago, and I just realized I never planned to stay long, but as I was here, I kind of got caught up in the wave of progress.
Right.
I realized, how fast China's progressing, how much things are moving and growing. And it became very clear to me that this was kind of like a wave, and like I could surf that wave and it would really accelerate my development and growth and everything else.
Wow. That is quite a story. Now, if I can, just to clarify for the audience, because you've got all these amazing things you're doing. You're developing content. You've got the reality TV. You've got the localization, the sales, the privacy protection, the consulting. What are 2 or 3 main tasks you do on a, quote, typical day?
Well, I guess I don't know if I mentioned, I'm the founder and CEO of this company. And so lately, what I've been focusing on is trying to help the big projects go through. So when we're working with ByteDance, which is the creator of TikTok, and Tencent, which makes WeChat, and they own League of Legends, another really big Chinese brand.
Wow.
So when we're working with brands like that, that's kind of a big focus of my time to help the big projects move through. And then the rest is kind of on internal company stuff, with my main focus being on HR. So on the people in the company and trying to build systems that can help us grow. Because we're now almost at 40 people. And I feel like we're taking that step from a small company into kind of a medium-sized company, and there's a lot of growing pains. So that's a big focus of mine, that we can kind of keep that creative entrepreneurial spirit alive as we add in kind of bureaucracy to handle everything.
And these brands that you're helping, are you making commercials? Are these TV shows? Are these games? Or what are you making?
Yeah, so we're working. It's all in VR film, so virtual reality film. With Tencent, they're a huge film producer. Like their film division sponsored the World of Warcraft video. In China, they're like kind of Netflix-ish, like where they have a lot of their own content and their own IPs and all of those things. And now Tencent wants to start creating VR series of their series. So taking IPs that they have and making kind of versions of them or episodes of a series that can be watched in virtual reality.
Does that mean that those kind of shows would be, is the word interactive? Like if you want to turn left, the story turns left. If you want to turn right, the story turns right.
So I would say they're not interactive in that sense, like where you can change the outcome of the film. Mm-hmm. But I would say all VR film is interactive in the sense that you can look around.
Oh, that's cool.
It still would be like a set, maybe a 20-minute kind of episode of a show, but you would kind of be inside the show where the viewer would have the choice of, am I looking at the protagonist or the antagonist?
Right. Are these both, are they live action or are they animations or both?
So our camera is a film camera, like it films in live action, but with these brands, a lot of stuff is also kind of a melding of CG and live action. So I just got back from Beijing where with Tencent, we had a big shoot in their virtual production studio. So with the big LCD kind of walls instead of green screen. And so figuring out actually how you can film with a VR camera and still do all of these kind of traditional film post workflows.
Right. So you mentioned ByteDance and Tencent and all these brands. That leads me to my next question. How do you find these business partners? And the follow-up is, how do you suggest the listeners perhaps find a Chinese partner?
That's interesting. A lot of times they find me.
Okay.
I think because I've been in the industry for so long, like in VR, 10 years is like, it's like dog years. Like every year counts for 4. And especially with us developing the camera, my partner and the CTO, Chief Technology Officer of the company, has been developing VR camera technology for over a decade. Oh. And so we're kind of known in the industry. So for Tencent, they were looking around and then somebody suggested us and put an introduction. Wow. Which doesn't really help your question of how would other people find them.
How did you find them in the beginning, or how did it work out when you were just starting out?
I'm a very firm believer in community.
Okay.
So I think the way I was able to, like with Tencent, the fact that somebody introduced me to Tencent, and then the person who introduced Tencent to me, I knew that guy from ages ago when I was running the community. But something specific with the community, it wasn't just running kind of a forum and chat groups, but it was also a lot of kind of giving to the community.
Is that,
so I would do tutorials on creating content.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
So you got it. So you were having like a chat room where people could ask questions, and you were like a moderator and offering advice.
Yeah. So with just being able to share things is a very powerful, and it's kind of a gift that makes you endeared to people, and it also showcases your expertise. So for somebody else, let's say somebody does motion cap animation software, and they're figuring out how can they get potentially into China or get known by China. If they were making tutorials on creating mocap animations and they had them localized and shared across Chinese social media.
So it's more social media as opposed to I know Oculus dash China you in your bio is purchased by Facebook. Do you prefer to use the like the WeChat to communicate, or do you have like a website where you have this blog still?
Yeah, so the website, once Oculus bought the website, I wanted to continue it as a community-based website for China, but Oculus didn't have an interest in that. Well, I guess because they were bought by Facebook, and Facebook doesn't have a presence in China.
Right.
So they just took the entire thing and just made it a redirect. Like you can go on it now, Oculus-China.com, and it will just take you to the official website. So since then, it's still been, I guess, being involved in community, but instead of having my own community, just sharing in others. So I'll speak at conferences, and I'll still post videos online on other kind of social media platforms, and still be contributing to kind of the general development.
Excellent. So let me ask you this. What obstacles have you encountered on a past project? How did you overcome it, and what did you learn?
Wow, there's like thousands of obstacles on every project.
Okay.
I think something that I learned early on in China is that being a Westerner in China is a positive in a very shallow way.
Okay.
So it's, some people will think about, like, we'll look at it and say like, oh, you have this advantage, Nikk, because you're not Chinese, so people are going to notice you. And that is very true. I'm very noticeable, which will give me a lot of initial interest, but the follow through is usually pretty minimal.
Okay.
So I think, I don't know if this is a good example, but I think it's a challenge that I think attractive women would have in tech industries in the West, where if you're an attractive woman at a conference, many more people are going to come to your booth. But in society, there's still kind of prejudices where a lot of times kind of, it's unfortunate, but that kind of people work with their own people. So it's, I think the West is getting past that, but I feel that there would be, that you would get approached because you're attractive, but then in the end, they want to find kind of someone who looks like them to actually sign a contract.
It sounds like you've gotten past that. I mean, you've been there for 15 years. You've got this huge company.
Yeah, but the way I get past that is by getting out of the way. And so I do like a bait and like a bait and switch method.
Okay.
So I'll be, if I'm at the conference and somebody will walk up to my booth and they'll be like, oh, hey, where are you from? And they're there only because of my face, not because of anything that the company offers. And I know that ideally they'll be happy to come chat with a foreigner and have a little conversation, maybe take a selfie and then go on their way. So I'll say, oh, hi, yeah. And chat for 10 seconds about myself. And then I'll say, and let me introduce you to Mr. Wong, who would love to tell you about our camera. and then
Right.
I step out.
Right. Right.
And
Yeah.
so that way I can use my advantage of kind of being unique and different looking to pull in people. And then I let kind of Chinese people come and handle the deal and the other things so that they feel comfortable that they're working with someone that they know.
I get it. I get it. Well, that leads to this next question. I don't know if this is a problem, that problem you want to solve, but if there was two current problems, and this could be minor or this could be major. If you could magically solve two current problems, what would they be?
I would end kickbacks.
Okay, that's good.
Like there's something in the Chinese industry where often the person who's in charge of the purchasing order, they expect to be kind of reimbursed for it.
You mean like buying a camera, or what do you mean?
Just for anything in like for a piece of content or buying cameras or like even unrelated to me, that I think is kind of just a real kind of industry wide, not even just this industry, but kind of business wide problem.
Right.
Where it's like, let's say if your company is buying paper and there are 10 vendors that all pretty much sell the same thing, but one of them will say, hey, you're the purchasing guy, I'm going to give you a 5% little under the table bonus on that order. And that's something that me as an entrepreneur have decided to make a stand against.
Good.
But then it harms my business because there will be cases where I'll be going up for a job and there'll be somebody else who offers something maybe similar, maybe a little bit lower quality, but if they choose that guy, making the choice of that guy is going to give them a $10,000 bonus or something. And so that, I think, has harmed the industry at large.
Yeah.
Because with that, then it's not the best product that survives. It's the one that kind of plays that game. And I see it changing on an industry like Huawei, ByteDance, Tencent, all these kind of tech giants have very strict rules. Like I remember for Huawei, every year we make New Year's gifts, and they wouldn't even accept our New Year's gifts.
Okay.
Because they're like, we have a rule, we're not allowed to accept even like a $10 kind of piece of swag.
Okay.
And so I think they've made those decisions and they've survived. And I'm trying to make those decisions. Well, I do make those decisions, and I'm trying to survive having made those decisions.
Right.
But the fact that exists is just hard for me as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I bet.
For the entire industry.
Yeah, you'd think though that eventually the poor quality would bite someone in the back if they just went for the money grab.
Yeah, I think it does, but it's often, I think it's like a gentle bite.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Okay.
It's going to harm the company for sure. Like, for example, if my company, if we're buying lenses or something, and they choose the lens distributor who gives my purchasing guy a bonus, I'm going to end up getting a worse lens.
Right.
So he's not gonna buy a piece of garbage because that will be noticeable and it'll come back to them.
Right.
But it results in just money going into people's pockets, not necessarily into
the product,
research and development, and the most valuable places.
Exactly. Well, that's one problem. Was there a second problem?
Um, I think, I think there's probably a lot more problems that there could be, but I guess for me personally, um, the language and communication barrier, I feel, is something that I would love to solve. Like, and I guess it's something that I'm trying to solve by just continually learning Chinese. Um, but it's yeah, it's a challenge. Like,
I
even
bet.
I speak Chinese every day, and that's kind of like my main language right now. But noticing the difference when I have a meeting that's in English versus a meeting that's in Chinese, and just how much smoother everything goes.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Um, well, let's look ahead for a minute. What sort of future projects are you looking for? And the flip side of that question is, what do you think your Chinese partners or Chinese studios are looking for?
Yeah, so for me, I'm looking for long-term serious projects. For the VR industry, there have been like a couple booms in China where the industry's grown quickly by leaps and bounds, and things have been kind of, it seemed like it's been really developed. But the interest is really shallow. So I feel for what we're doing with this kind of new kind of technology, a lot of people are interested in it just as an experiment, kind of testing the waters and seeing what could be made. But it's not long term. So what I'm looking for and searching for is actual real use cases. So it's kind of, before they'd want a VR content demo just to put in their showroom to showcase to people that, oh, we have this content that you can check out. But it's not actually something that they're really using and showcasing to their kind of customers. And so now I'm looking for projects like this Tencent one, that they actually want to do a long-term kind of in-house VR production studio that will really be focused on actually kind of the next 20, 30 years of content. And to me, that's my kind of, that's my dream. That's what I really want.
And what do you think the Chinese brands or Chinese studios are looking for?
I think they're kind of on the edge of experimenting and actually using. So they want to have new technology, and they don't want to be left behind, but they also don't want to be too far ahead. So they're looking for projects that will actually kind of be bigger than just a demo. Like, that's why we've been working with reality TV, because the viewership of some of these shows is in the tens of millions or hundreds of millions of people. And so for them to be able to use VR and actually offer something new and big to their clients, that's, yeah, I think that's what they're searching for, to be able to kind of use this new technology and not be left behind, but at the same time to not be experimenting with something that doesn't have any practical value.
Exactly. Well, we looked forward for a minute. Now let's look back for a second. If you could do your career over again, what would you do differently?
Oh, like, it's everything. It's, I wonder a lot of the value of being as early as I was. Like, to have gotten into VR 10 years ago, would it have been that different if I got into VR 5 years ago? Maybe not, because the first 5 years was just a struggle and nobody understood what I was doing.
Right.
And it's good to be early, because then it's like, oh yeah, that guy's kind of he's a OG
Pioneer.
or an original. Yeah,
A
a pioneer. But when you look at most successful businesses, they weren't the pioneers, like the tech giants in the internet.
That's true.
With the exception of a few, not many of them were pioneers. And like the creators of the internet, they aren't the Zuckerbergs and the names that we all know,
right,
and who have billions of dollars. They're kind of people who did it when nobody understood. And then once kind of people started getting into it, people with more clear business minds kind of ate their lunch. So I don't know. I wonder if it was that good to be early. Maybe I would have waited, but if I did it again. And the other thing that I would probably change is to be focused on the business side of things.
Okay.
I'm a creative, and I would say I'm an artist and an engineer. And I always had the opinion of, if you build it, they will come. So you just got to focus on making something awesome and having the best tech and being the coolest, and then you'll be successful. And now I think it's the opposite, that if you have that and not the marketing and the sales, it doesn't matter. And if you have the marketing and the sales, you could have anything. And it doesn't even have to be good.
Okay. Well, that leads to another one of these questions. What skills or talents are essential to being effective in your job?
I would say the ability to be flexible and to grow and to learn, and to listen. Specifically, being in a country where you're not a native of that country, there's so many things that you're going to miss and that you won't understand. And if you don't have the ability to listen to other people, you're going to make a lot of needless mistakes. So that's been really key, to have people around me who I can trust and who will let me know. Like, sometimes I'll end a meeting and I'll be like, that went great. And they'll be like, what? Were we in the same meeting? Like,
really?
You're not going to hear from that guy again.
Oh, really? Well, what's that cliche that the Chinese don't say no?
Yeah. No, they don't. And they say things in such roundabout, confusing ways. Like, an example, not from this industry, but from probably 13 years ago, when I was working with a friend managing a bar. I remember there was a manager at the bar who had to go. And so we discussed it, and he agreed, like, all right, well, we'll let him go. And so we had a meeting to let him go. And in the meeting, we discussed just kind of general things about the bar and update and what had been happening. And the meeting went for maybe 20 minutes, and it seemed like a normal meeting. And then at the very end of the meeting, my partner said, oh, and by the way, Mr. Hu, we're doing a little bit of organization on kind of the structure here, and you can have the next 2 days off. And then the meeting ended.
That was it.
And I was like, I thought we were firing that guy. And my partner's like, yeah, we did. And I was like, what?
Really?
I was like, yeah. Well, because I guess one thing that is funny is 2 days in Chinese doesn't mean 2 days. It means like a undefined amount of time.
Oh, who would have guessed?
Like
who would have guessed?
Or yeah, oh no, I know. I thought 2 days meant 2 days. And and to say that you don't need to come in and we're restructuring, that would let him know that, like, Like we're changing things around here, and for an undefined amount of time, we don't need you, which is basically we don't need you. Whereas if that was me, I would have showed up the day after tomorrow.
They better not use that on Westerners, because Westerners will come back. I'm back, boss.
Well, exactly. Yeah, it's been 2 days. I timed it.
How come my password doesn't work on the computer? Or how come my identity card won't get through the machine? Okay, that's funny. That is funny. Okay, well, good listening, and knowing the not idioms, but just the reading between the lines, I guess. Now here's a trick question. What question did I not ask you that I should have?
I guess maybe something interesting would be my predictions for the future.
What are your predictions for the future?
Well, so specifically for my industry, I predict that VR will become mainstream in China before it does in the West.
Interesting.
It's taken a bit of time over the past couple of years to actually become mainstream here, and people think that it's behind China. But I think the reason is in 2015, when VR kind of the concept was becoming a thing, it blew up in China and became huge. And pretty much everybody tried VR. Every major company did something in VR, but it was too early. And so they all had bad experiences. Companies lost money. Countless businesses went bankrupt. The general public had really bad experiences with poor quality content. And so now VR in China is behind the West, but that's only because it developed too quickly. And I think once the technology and the content and everything catches up, I think it's going to pass the West again. I guess what I've seen here is just an ability to accept new things and kind of embrace them and to abandon the old.
Yeah. Well, that's true.
Yeah, like cash. Cash is a great example that I like to think of. I haven't touched money. I actually don't think I've touched money in 2 years.
Wow.
Like actually, yeah, like it's if I went to an ATM and withdrew money, I would feel scandalous. Like that I'm taking cash out, I must be doing something that I don't want to have traced back to me. Like there's really no place in China where you can't use digital payment, and it would be frowned upon. Like when somebody takes out cash at a convenience store, it's like if you wanted to barter, like at a convenience store. Like it's like, well, we don't do that anymore. Society is developed.
Wow.
And that exists in the West. There's Apple Pay, there's Cash App, there's Venmo. The technology is just as developed in the West, but for some reason, people are still holding on to a significantly worse way of doing things.
Well, I'm in Los Angeles, and there was a story in the paper a few months ago about how they tried to have a few of these stores just with Apple Pay or some kind of digital wallet, and it got shot down because it was saying there are some disadvantaged people who did not have digital wallets and only had cash. So, anyway, it's I know what you're saying, because you hear these stories of foreigners going to China trying to pay cash, and they look at, and the cashier looks at them like they're from another world. It's like, why are you paying cash, buddy?
Oh yeah. Well, it's interesting you mentioned of disadvantaged people, because actually in China, it's illegal to not accept cash. So
Okay.
even though digital is the standard, any business legally has to accept cash.
Okay.
So they still kind of, I guess they have that thought of some people don't. And you'll see like an old person or something,
right.
like who will take out his kind of box of change or something. But even, okay, disadvantaged. Now every beggar I've seen in the past year plus has a QR code for accepting digital payments.
That's great. Wow, that is high tech. Here, scan your phone here, and I'll take your donation. I love it.
Yeah. Oh, it's mind blowing, but it makes sense that because in the West everybody has a cell phone.
Yeah.
Like, is there really anybody that disadvantaged that they don't have a cell phone? I'm sure there are people, but from what I know, it's pretty much become standard.
Majority.
Or even another example is with texting or calling.
Yeah.
Like I have maybe 10 phone numbers in my phone's contact book. Like it's not something I would consider. Like if somebody sent me a text, it would be like getting a message by carrier pigeon.
Oh. It's all WeChat?
I still see it. Yeah, it's all WeChat or Ding Talk, or there's other apps, but it's all digital and almost primarily WeChat, except for the younger generation are now using QQ again.
And what if it's like you wanted to write a long email? You got to email it and then email it to yourself and then paste it to WeChat?
Yeah, people don't send emails.
Okay.
You would just send a long WeChat message that can contain your information, and you can add attachments. And there's WeChat also on computer as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can still do it all there. But I see people on Facebook message like, "Oh, I lost my phone. Here's my new phone number. Message me your numbers," which is like just a bizarre concept. And again, it's not that the technology doesn't exist in the West. Everybody has WeChat Messenger or WhatsApp or all of these kind of internet-based communication platforms, but yet they still choose to make phone calls and to send text messages.
Yeah.
So that's why I just see the future for totally kind of disruptive technologies and new ways of doing things and new ways of experiencing content and all kinds of stuff like this, and specifically VR. I just see that it has the kind of cultural landscape is so much more open to embracing it than the West.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. And here's another question. If you could give advice to your younger self, what would that be?
Don't trust people.
Yeah, don't. Okay, there you go. I love it. Yeah.
Or I should kind of readjust that statement, because I would say treat people as if you don't trust them.
Okay.
And I try to make it that distinction in my life, because I feel like to live without trust is to view everybody as your enemy.
Right.
And that's kind of just a sad, cold way to go through the world.
Right.
But you need to protect yourself. And so now I kind of have accepted this dichotomy inside of myself, where my partners and different people who I work with, where I will really trust them wholeheartedly, but I will make every decision as if I don't trust them. Maybe not every decision, but it's like I'll look at a contract from my best friend and I'll think about it as, in what ways could this
Go wrong.
if he was trying to get me,
Right.
how could this contract be used to get me?
Right. Right.
And yeah, I've had very bad experiences where it was just because I trusted people and they were my best friends, and I had a contract in front of me that I knew this is not good, but they explained the reasons to it, and they're my best friends and they have my good interests in mind, and so I should trust them. And I think it's, yeah, you can trust whoever you want, but you need to protect yourself against anything that could possibly happen.
Exactly. And you have to have that in writing. Yeah. It can't be, what do they say? Promises aren't worth the paper they're written on, or I'm screwing up that phrase, but anyway, you understand what I mean.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, in conclusion, would you like to share any social media details or website links so our audience can know how to keep track of you?
Sure. So if you want to learn about FXG, you can check our website out, www.fxg.space. And you can also find us on Twitter, FXG_VR, on YouTube, FXGVR. If you're interested in VR film, there's a lot of cool stuff coming out with our new cameras and our technology. If you want to kind of experiment with it yourself, if you want to kind of test the waters of virtual reality film, hit me up. You can find me personally on Twitter at Nikk Mitchell, NIKKMITCHELL. That's me on Twitter. And if you want to learn more about VR or China or anything, I'm always up for a direct message. I like to share, and yeah, there's a lot going to be happening in China. I think it's a challenging space to be involved in.
Oh yeah.
I know, Caryn, you talked to Kevin Geiger, yes?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. And so I think I would say that I understand everything that he says, and he brings up a lot of great points. And I think when entering into China, there's a lot of things you should be aware of in advance and you should be cautious of, because it's a challenging market and it's very difficult here, but there's also opportunity here.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's definitely a space that should be paid attention to.
Yes, exactly. You have to weigh the risks and then weigh the rewards. And, sometimes the risks are worth the rewards. But Nikk, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your expertise. And thank you for coming on the show today.
Well, thank you, Caryn. This has been a lot of fun. Love to share these things. And those were great questions. And yeah, thanks again.
Great. And we'll see you at the premiere. And now for my takeaways. Today, I have 5. Number 1, finding business partners. Get active in an online community. Nikk gave valuable information and comments on, and even created tutorials on his online community. This is an avenue to find partners, but you can't be spammy. You have to add value. Number 2, the pros and cons of being a Westerner in China. The pros are you stand out, you're noticeable. The cons are you're noticeable in a shallow way. You may generate interest, but the follow-through may be minimal. People work with their own people. The way Nikk gets past this is to get out of the way. At a conference booth, he'll be approached by a potential Chinese client/partner. He'll talk for a bit and then hand over the conversation to his Chinese colleague. And remember, Nikk is the boss of his own company. This is an obstacle you just need to deal with. Number 3, focus on the business side. Creatives need to focus on the business side of things. If you have a cool product, be that tech or IP, but no marketing and sales, it doesn't matter. Your product doesn't matter. But if you have the marketing and sales, your product will go far. Number 4, read between the lines. In China, things are not said directly. Nikk told a very funny story about back when he was running a bar, how the big boss fired someone, but used very subtle language, so subtle that Nikk didn't realize the guy had actually been fired. The boss told the worker they were restructuring and the worker could take 2 days off, which in China means indefinitely. Who knew? Number 5, VR will be mainstream in China before the West, according to Nikk. China has the unusual ability to adopt new things and abandon old things. For example, like cash. Everyone uses a digital wallet. Back in 2015, VR in China grew too fast and lots of companies went broke. Plus, the public wasn't happy with the subpar content. Nikk says once technology and content catch up, VR in China will bypass VR in the West. Well, that's the show. Thank you for listening. To show your support, please subscribe, leave a rating, or share this podcast on social media so more people can discover this podcast. The more we grow the community, the more we can collaborate. And stay tuned for our big announcement. The China List, our membership website to connect writers and producers in Hollywood and China, is expanding. We will have a new look and website called the Asia List. Besides China and Hollywood, soon writers and producers from South Korea, Japan, Thailand, the Philippines, Indonesia, Taiwan, India, etc. will be able to connect. Stay tuned for more details. That's the show. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you at the premiere. Bye. 一会儿见.